Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. If you enjoyed today's video, please show your support by hitting that like button. So then, we have a handful of Xbox social media influencers who seem to be furious at the developers at Moon Studios, and the story goes a little bit like this. Moon Studios, the team best known for the critically acclaimed Ori and the Blind Forest and its sequel, have been making headlines, but not just for their new game, No Rest for the Wicked. This time it's because the studio is possibly moving away from releasing its next game on the Xbox platform, well, at least for now. In a recent conversation on Discord, Moon Studios CEO Thomas Mahler mentioned that due to the way the gaming market looks at the moment, the team is currently concentrating on releasing No Rest for the Wicked for PlayStation 5 and quite possibly the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. In fact, what he actually said, and I quote, "Given current market conditions, we might only release on PlayStation 5 and potentially Switch 2 for the time being. We'll have to discuss with Microsoft to see what makes sense for Xbox." Now, this has caused a few minority Xbox fans across social media to kick up a bit of a stink, literally posting content across social media not to buy the game because the developers have betrayed the Xbox brand and its gamers. This is off the back of Moon Studios having had a very strong history with Xbox in the past. Both the Ori games were Xbox and PC exclusives for a period of time, and although they were eventually ported to Nintendo Switch, they never made their way to PlayStation consoles. So the fact that we now have the developers of the studio now saying, actually, we're going to make PlayStation 5 the priority, it makes a pretty big change in direction for the Austrian-based studio. To give you a little bit more context, No Rest for the Wicked is already available on PC in early access. It's a kind of top-down action RPG where players take on the role of a sermon, a kind of holy warrior blessed with magical powers. Their job is to wipe out a deadly plague called the Pestilence, which is turning people into mindless monsters on an island known as Isola Sacra. But it's not just about fighting off infected enemies. The game also dives into the politics of the kingdom, with internal power struggles and rebellion brewing alongside the chaos. What really sets No Rest for the Wicked apart is its intense and methodical combat system. It's been compared to Diablo in terms of style, but it places a bigger emphasis on timing, strategy, and precision. Players can customize their characters with different weapons and armor and build paths to suit their playstyle. The art style has also been getting a lot of praise, with many calling it visually stunning. So why might Moon Studios hold off on an Xbox version then? You might be thinking that, right? Well, there are a few reasons that make this decision more understandable when you look deeper into it. One big factor, in fact it's a massive factor, is the current size of each console's user base. The PlayStation 5 has sold around 80 million units. And that number is going to go off the charts when GTA 6, PS5 and PS5 Pro bundles are released next May. So we could be looking easily at well over 100 million PlayStation 5s being sold by sometime next year, while estimates for Xbox Series S and X combined are significantly lower, somewhere around the 35 million units mark. And although the Nintendo Switch 2 is still new onto the scene, it's still off to a strong start and is expected to sell quite well, just like the previous Nintendo Switch. From a business perspective, focusing on platforms with the largest potential audience makes a lot of sense, especially for a studio that's trying to get its new game into as many hands as possible. And then of course you have to look at the actual game sales on PlayStation and Switch versus game sales on Xbox. Another big point being discussed in the gaming community is Xbox's current model, which is heavily centered around Game Pass. And while Game Pass has been a hit for many people, and I do know a lot of people that enjoy playing games via Game Pass, there's actually ongoing debate about how well individual games perform in terms of direct sales on the platform compared to PlayStation and Switch. For developers who rely on those sales numbers, especially outside of a subscription model, PlayStation can often seem like a more attractive and obvious choice. And the harsh reality that some people really struggle to deal with and accept is that games on Xbox just don't sell. Certainly not in the volumes that the publishers are hoping for, and especially when you compare them to platforms like PC, Switch and PlayStation. Unless a game is released into Game Pass, the vast majority of Xbox gamers will not buy the game. Time and time again we're seeing this, and time again we're seeing developers opt to prioritize PlayStation ahead of Xbox. It's what happens when you cultivate a gamer base into expecting games for free via Game Pass, and it's one of the biggest reasons why publishers are reluctant to release their games on Xbox Xbox first, or certainly prioritize them for Xbox. The only way the game drops into Game Pass is if Microsoft compensates the studio for an equivalent number of unit sales. And I suppose this is where we are now. If Microsoft is willing to pay a little bit extra, a little bit more for this new game, then it could very well come to Xbox on launch. However, at this stage, it is looking very, very doubtful. Mahler later clarified on X that the plan is still to eventually bring the game to all platforms, including Xbox. So there we have it. It is coming to Xbox at some stage, but it's just not going to be the priority. He emphasized that just based on the numbers, PlayStation 5 is the most obvious and logical platform to prioritize at this point in time. It's also worth mentioning that some reports have suggested there may be some tension between Moon Studios and Microsoft. Past stories have pointed to a possible falling out, including allegations of a toxic workplace culture that may have impacted their working relationship. While that hasn't been officially confirmed by either party, it might also be a piece of the puzzle when looking at why Xbox isn't part of the immediate launch plans. So far, No Rest for the Wicked has been well received by PC players. It's still in early access, so there's still things that need ironing out, and it's not the finished product just yet, but the feedback on its gameplay mechanics, the visuals, and overall atmosphere have been very positive. As for the official release date for consoles, that's not been confirmed yet, but when it does come to PlayStation 5 and potentially the Switch 2, many are eager to see how Moon Studios' first PlayStation title is received by fans. So guys, what do you think? Will you be checking out No Rest for the Wicked on PlayStation 5 or Switch 2 if it comes to that platform too? Are you surprised by Moon Studios moving away from Xbox at launch? Let me know in the comments down below, and let's move on. After months of speculation and leaks, EA has officially announced that Battlefield 6 will be revealed tomorrow on July the 24th at 8 a.m. Pacific time and 4 p.m. British Summer Time. This news came through a YouTube event listing on the official Battlefield channel, and although the listing doesn't provide any new details about the game just yet, it does confirm that the big reveal is just around the corner. The upcoming Battlefield title has already been generating a lot of conversation, thanks in large down to the Battlefield Labs playtesting program. Leaks and data mines from these sessions have slowly painted a picture of what we can expect from the game when it finally does come out. For example, several reliable sources and leaks, including a Battlefield-focused Telegram group, have reported that an open beta for Battlefield 6 is planned for early August. Specifically, it's said to be around August the 4th, which would make sense as a follow-up to the official reveal. References to this open beta were reportedly found in recent client updates to Battlefield Labs, giving further credibility to this claim. One of the biggest pieces of information to come out of the leaks is the return to Rush Mode, a fan favorite multiplayer mode that hasn't featured prominently in recent Battlefield games. If this mode is truly making a comeback, it could be a smart move by EA to bring longtime fans back into this franchise. Another key detail that has surfaced is the game's massive budget. According to a report from Arx Technica, EA is pouring over $400 million into the development of Battlefield 6. That's a huge investment, even by AAA standards. The company has reported that it has set its sights on reaching 100 million players, which shows just how ambitious the project really is. This scale of development is being handled by a team collectively known as Battlefield Studios, and it includes most of their studios. That's DICE, Ripple Effect Studios, Criterion Games, and EA Motive, with EA promoting flexibility in gameplay options like choosing between signature weapons tied to classes or more open loadouts. The team seems focused on giving players choice and customization. The official reveal on July 24th should finally confirm many of the details, but for now, the fans of the series are left to piece things together from leaks and unofficial sources. Really looking forward to this game. We've always preferred the Battlefield games over Call of Duty games, especially when they're both going at it neck and neck. I enjoy the destructible environments and the large online mode, so hopefully Battlefield 6 will be going back to its roots. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this, and let's move on. As if Moon Studios skipping Xbox was bad enough, there's potentially more disappointing news for fans hoping to get their hands on Fable. Microsoft had previously stated that the new Fable reboot was targeting a 2026 release. This information came from Craig Duncan, head of Xbox Game Studios, who emphasized that the team at Playground Games just needed more time to make the best possible game. He assured fans that it would be worth the wait. However, a new update from Nick Baker, a well-known figure from the Xbox Era podcast, suggests that the game might not make its 2026 target after all. According to Nick, sources have told him that Fable might be pushed back to 2027. Nick explained that the delay isn't a result of any development issues or internal struggles. Instead, it sounds like the team simply needs more time to make sure the game lives up to expectations. In his own words, it's not doom and gloom, it's just taking a little bit longer than expected. He also noted that his sources include both people from within and outside of Microsoft. However, these are all still rumors and no official announcements have been made about the delay. It is possible that Microsoft or Playground Games could come forward to correct the timeline at any stage, but that's not happened just yet. What's interesting is that there are also rumors suggesting Fable might be part of Microsoft's multi-platform strategy, meaning it could potentially release on PlayStation 5 in addition to Xbox and PC. Well, hang on. I'd be shocked, absolutely shocked, if Fable didn't come to PlayStation, considering all the other major Xbox games are practically on or coming to PlayStation. So as for Fable, it will be on PlayStation 5. So far, not much officially has been shown about Fable, but according to Duncan, fans can expect stunning visuals, strong gameplay, and that classic British humour that has always been a hallmark of the Fable series. Playground Games, best known for the Forza Horizon series, is aiming to bring their own unique take on the world of Albion, the setting of Fable. If their work on Forza is anything to go by, the new Fable should be visually stunning and well polished when it does finally arrive. If this delay to Fable is purely down to ensuring the game is in its best state possible, then personally I'm okay with that. I don't have any issue with any game being delayed to improve the game quality, polish, or if they just need to rework things. But one thing is for sure, this game will be coming to PlayStation whenever it releases. Cannot wait to play this. It's been years since I dived into a Fable game. So moving on to another Xbox game coming to PlayStation. There has been a lot of speculation in recent months about whether Starfield, Bethesda's latest big budget RPG, will eventually come to PlayStation 5. While nothing has been officially confirmed by the developers or Microsoft, there's still plenty of talk and rumors behind the scenes that suggest a PlayStation 5 port is indeed in the works. According to Nate the Hate, a known gaming industry insider with a fairly reliable track record, the PlayStation 5 version of Starfield is still happening. It just won't be released as early as originally planned, and there's a very good reason why. The comment came in response to a fan question on social media platform X, where Nate clarified that although the port has been slightly delayed, it hasn't been cancelled. He also mentioned that a proper update on the situation will come when possible, which implies things are still developing behind the scenes. Now, this isn't a formal announcement, so we should take things with a pinch of salt, as always when it comes to rumors and leaks. But considering recent trends in the industry, especially with Microsoft exploring multi-platform releases more aggressively, this doesn't sound too far-fetched. While a delay might be frustrating for some PlayStation 5 users who have been waiting to dive into the world of Starfield, the timeline actually lines up with other projects tied to Starfield. Just a few days before this update, the same industry insider mentioned that a second major DLC for Starfield is currently in development. The first expansion, called Shattered Space, was released in September 2024, but the second one is reportedly still early in production and is unlikely to be released within the current year. What's interesting is that this new DLC could be a more expansive update than Shattered Space, possibly bringing new features or content that would significantly upgrade the base game. If that's the case, Bethesda might be planning to launch the PlayStation 5 version alongside the second expansion. So essentially you're getting a beefed up Starfield game catered to the PlayStation platform, which includes both the DLCs or the expansions. So doing this would make sense from a marketing standpoint, offering PlayStation players a more polished and content-rich version of the game right out of the gate. And hopefully, obviously, all of it on disc. There are even whispers that the second expansion could be called Starborn, though nothing again has been confirmed on that front. Right now, Starfield is officially available on Xbox and PC. It launched in September 2023, and it marked Bethesda's first new intellectual property in over 20 years. Now, the game offers a massive space-themed open world with hundreds of planets to explore and tons of customization, and a traditional role-playing experience that fans of Bethesda titles like Skyrim and Fallout are very familiar with. However, the reception of the game has been mixed, with some praising its scope and ambition, while others felt the gameplay loop and exploration didn't quite live up to the hype. Regardless, Starfield still drew a large player base and generated a lot of discussion within the gaming community. Historically, Microsoft hasn't brought many of its big exclusives to PlayStation platforms, especially after acquiring studios like Bethesda. But that's all changing now. We've already seen Microsoft-owned titles like Hi-Fi Rush and Sea of Thieves, Indiana Jones, Forza, and other games in the pipeline that are making their way over to PlayStation 5. And this change is part to a broader multi-platform strategy where Microsoft is basically going full third-party and placing its games everywhere at the expense of its own Xbox hardware. So putting Starfield on PlayStation 5 would not be too surprising. In fact, it's expected, especially if the company sees it as a way to extend the game's lifecycle and also tap into a huge console audience. And considering how long and expensive Starfield was to make, it would make perfect sense for Bethesda and Microsoft to get the game in front of as many players as possible, especially with the new content on the way. Okay guys, let's move on. Ubisoft has just shared its financial results for the first quarter of the 2025-2026 fiscal year, which covers the period from April to June 2025. And while the numbers tell a mixed story, they also offer insight into where the company is headed. And there are a lot of moving pieces here at play. According to the reports, net bookings, that's the revenue generated from game sales and in-game purchases, they came in at just over 281 million euros. That's a 2.9% drop compared to the same time last year. And it also fell short of the company's own expectations. So what's caused this dip in sales? Ubisoft pointed to two main issues. One was the lower than expected performance of Rainbow Six Siege, and the other was a strategic partnership deal that didn't go through as expected. However, that deal is still in the pipeline and is now expected to close sometime in the second quarter. On the brighter side, one of Ubisoft's biggest franchises is still going strong. The newly released Assassin's Creed Shadows has already racked up over 5 million unique players since launch. I hate it when companies start releasing information about how many players are playing. It doesn't tell me the one thing that I want to know. That is, how many units did you sell? That's the most important figure. How many did you sell? I mean, 5 million players is still a solid number, especially with more content coming soon. And I know some of these studios like to measure in-game microtransactions and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately, how many did you sell? That should be the most important number to start any discussion about whether a game is successful or not. How many units did you sell? Ubisoft is counting on this momentum from Assassin's Creed Shadows to carry forward into the holiday season. They're planning to release a major expansion called Claws of Awaji in quarter 2, which will add over 10 hours of new gameplay, a new weapon type, and additional skills and abilities for players to explore. This expansion is expected to keep players engaged and attract new ones in the lead up to the end of the year. In total, Assassin's Creed franchise has now sold over 200 million copies across all titles, making it one of the most successful game series in history. Then there's Rainbow Six Siege X, a refreshed version of the long-running competitive shooter. Ubisoft said the game has been well received by players, with many praising the updated gameplay and new features, which have helped increase the engagement. However, the game also hit a big problem. A technical pricing issue affected the in-game spending, causing a temporary disruption in revenue. Basically, there was an exploit involving prepaid currency cards, which let players inflate their virtual wallets. This was identified and fixed by June, but it definitely had an impact on the short-term earnings. Despite that, the signs are still promising. Ubisoft reported that June had the third highest number of monthly active players within the game's history, only falling behind 2 peak months that occurred during the height of the COVID pandemic lockdown in 2020. Since the relaunch, player acquisitions have been about 5 times higher than the same period last year, and in-game purchases are showing positive momentum again. Another interesting success story from Ubisoft's recent quarter is Tom Clancy's The Division 2. Thanks to its Battle for Brooklyn DLC and its addition to Xbox Game Pass, the game saw a major increase in both player acquisition and engagement. In fact, Ubisoft says The Division 2 just had its highest activity level since May 2020, which is a pretty big deal for a game that's been on the market for several years now. This is a clear example of how strategic content update and partnerships, like getting featured into Game Pass, can breathe new life into older titles. Aside from game performance, Ubisoft is also undergoing a major internal transformation. The company is moving towards a new structure built around something they're calling creative houses. Basically, Ubisoft is reorganizing its teams into business units that are each focused on specific franchises or game types. The goal is to give each unit more creative freedom, while also improving focus, accountability, and quality across the board. The first creative house has already been formed, and that includes Ubisoft's flagship series. That's Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. This unit is all part of a subsidiary created in partnership with Tencent, which was originally announced back in March 2025. Ubisoft says the deal with Tencent is progressing well and is expected to be finalized by the end of the year, pending regulatory approval. While Ubisoft's first quarter came with some setbacks, mainly around Rainbow Six Siege X, the company seems to be positioning itself for long-term growth. Assassin's Creed Shadows is off to a strong start, The Division 2 is making a comeback, and Rainbow Six Siege is rebounding after some technical issues. The change towards creative houses, along with the evolving partnership with Tencent, shows that Ubisoft is trying to change. They're trying to adapt to a changing industry by streamlining how it operates internally. If it all goes as planned, we should expect big updates on Ubisoft's game lineup and business structure by the end of the year, and that could have a huge impact on how the company performs going into 2026 and beyond. However, the problem is always going to be that Ubisoft has a public perception, and it's a negative one right now. As soon as you mention the name Ubisoft, people get offended, they get triggered, they think negatively about the company and its games, regardless of how good some of these games may actually be. And this is one of the biggest challenges Ubisoft has, and it needs to figure out how to shake off that negative public perception if they wish to continue to grow and bring new gamers on board. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments about the content discussed in today's video, and I'll catch you on the next video.